The House votes to end the government shutdown, the U.S. shoots down an Iranian drone, and the Clintons cave to the committee investigating Jeffrey Epstein. I'm Daily Wire Executive Editor John Bickley with Georgia Howe. It's Tuesday, February 3rd. This is Evening Wire.
The government shutdown is over after the House passed a spending package today. Daily Wire political reporter Cameron Arcand has the latest from Capitol Hill.
The House voted to reopen the government on Tuesday in a narrow but bipartisan vote of 217 to 214. The spending package returned to the House after the White House and Senate Democrats agreed to split funding for DHS away from the rest of the legislation. Lawmakers opted for a continuing resolution to fund DHS through February 13th, whereas the other bills would fund the federal government through September. President Trump signed the bills into law this afternoon.
The U.S. military shot down an Iranian drone in the Arabian Sea today as it approached an American aircraft carrier. Daily Wire Foreign Affairs reporter Cassie Akiva has the latest.
A spokesperson for U.S. Central Command said that a fighter jet from the USS Abraham Lincoln shot down the drone, quote, in self-defense and to protect the aircraft carrier and personnel on board. No American service member was injured and no U.S. equipment was damaged in the incident. Later in the day, 2 Iranian boats and 1 drone linked to the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, a U.S.-designated terror organization, harassed an American oil tanker in the Strait of Hormuz along Iran's southern coast. The boats approached the American vessel at, quote, high speeds and threatened to board the tanker. A nearby U.S. Navy destroyer escorted the vessel and the U.S. Air Force responded with air support, which, quote, de-escalated the situation. The incidents come as U.S. and Iranian officials are scheduled to discuss an off-ramp to the rising tensions which stem from the regime killing up to 36,000 protesters earlier in January.
Investigators fear Nancy Guthrie, mother of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie, was abducted, though the investigation remains ongoing. Here with the latest is Daily Wire reporter Lyndon Blake.
Nancy Guthrie hasn't been seen since Saturday night at 9:45. Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanios said they believe the 84-year-old was taken against her will from her home sometime between 9:45 Saturday and 11 a.m. Sunday when she was reported missing. Tuesday morning, Nanios held a press conference where he couldn't answer much. He said he can't confirm if this was targeted or random, but the public isn't in danger. He also couldn't verify any blood was found at the home, which was labeled a crime scene, though other sources told outlets blood was present. He said the footage from security cameras around the house is being processed. And when asked about ransom notes, the sheriff said he's following all leads. The FBI is working with local authorities on this case. The assistant special agent in charge of the FBI office in Tucson, John Edwards, reassured the public they are working relentlessly to find Nancy.
We're looking at this from every angle, but we need your help. Every lead and tip is important. We are aggressively pursuing and looking into every single one. Again, please help us bring Nancy Guthrie home.
Late Tuesday, TMZ reported the news outlet received an unverified ransom note demanding millions of dollars in Bitcoin to a legit Bitcoin address for the return of Nancy Guthrie. TMZ alerted Pima County authorities about the incident. The Pima County Sheriff's Office account posted on X they are aware of ransom notes surrounding Nancy Guthrie. It's also been stressed that Nancy is not in good physical health. She needs assistance to walk more than 50 feet or more, and she relies on daily medication to survive. Her mental clarity, however, is said to be strong, but time is of the essence in this investigation. The White House even posting her photo and physical details, urging the public to call 911 if they have any information.
Every federal immigration officer on the ground in Minneapolis will now have a body camera. Daily Wire immigration reporter Jenny Terr has more.
The decision comes after President Trump replaced Border Patrol Commander Gregory Bovino with his border czar Tom Homan in Minneapolis. Homan's arrival was sparked by the fatal shooting of Alex Preddy and Renee Good and has led to a more targeted approach for arrests, with agents prioritizing the worst criminals first. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem announced the policy change following a conversation with Homan, the acting ICE director, and the CBP commissioner. The secretary said, quote, effective immediately, we are deploying body cameras to every officer in the field in Minneapolis. She added that the department will rapidly acquire and deploy body cameras to DHS law enforcement across the country.
They generally tend to be good for law enforcement because people can't lie about what's happening. So it's generally speaking, I think 80% good for law enforcement.
President Trump is now suing Harvard University for $1 billion over what he calls the Ivy League school's strongly anti-Semitic behavior. That's an increase from the original $500 million lawsuit filed in 2025. The move comes after the New York Times published a report claiming that the Trump administration was dropping its previous demands. In response, Trump accused Harvard of, quote, feeding a lot of nonsense to the failing New York Times.
Bill and Hillary Clinton are now going to testify before the House committee investigating Jeffrey Epstein. Here's Daily Wire reporter Tim Pierce with the story.
Bill and Hillary Clinton have dropped their opposition and agreed to testify before the House Oversight Committee, which is investigating the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The Clintons were originally scheduled to be deposed by the committee in mid-December. Committee Chair James Comer pushed back the deposition date by a month to accommodate the Clintons' plans to attend a funeral, but then the Clintons skipped their appearance anyway. The reversal came as House lawmakers prepared to vote to hold the former president and former Secretary of State in contempt of Congress. Earlier today, the committee announced new dates to hear the Clintons' testimonies. Hillary will sit in front of the committee on February 26th. The former president will testify the next day.
French prosecutors raided the offices of Elon Musk-owned X in France today. Daily Wire senior editor Joel Needler has the story.
The raid on the X office in Paris is part of a preliminary investigation into allegations that include the spreading of child sexual abuse images and deepfakes on the platform. Officials have also summoned Musk for questioning about the case. An investigation was opened last year by a cyber crime unit. As the Associated Press reports, it's, quote, looking into alleged complicity in possessing and spreading pornographic images of minors, sexually explicit deepfakes, denial of crimes against humanity, and manipulation of an automated data processing system as part of an organized group, among other charges. The French investigation into Musk's platform comes as Britain's data privacy regulator probes his AI company, xAI, which was recently acquired by another of Musk's companies, SpaceX. British investigators say they're looking into how xAI handled personal data when they developed Grok.
This episode is sponsored by Brickhouse Nutrition. You've probably heard about those weight loss injections that everyone's been talking about, and for good reason. The results can be pretty incredible. They work by helping regulate blood sugar and keeping your appetite in check. But here's the thing, not everyone wants to deal with weekly injections, especially when you start hearing about some of the side effects that can come with them. That's where Lean comes in. It's a weight loss supplement developed by doctors, and people are seeing some really impressive results. The ingredients in Lean are backed by research showing that they can help lower blood sugar, turn stored fat into energy, and reduce those constant cravings that make dieting so hard. This stuff is no joke. I am one of those people that eats sometimes a lot when I'm stressed. But once Lean came into the picture, I was able to rein in my cravings. Let's get you started with 20% off and free rush shipping so you can add Lean to your healthy diet and exercise plan. Visit takelean.com and enter WIRE for your discount. That's promo code WIRE at takelean.com today.
President Trump says India will drop Russian oil, shifting to the U.S. and potentially Venezuelan markets. Daily Wire reporter Zach Jewell has the details.
Trump said he reached a trade deal with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi after a wide-ranging phone call yesterday. After Russia's war with Ukraine started in 2022, India became the largest importer of Russian seaborne crude oil, and by 2025, about 35% of India's imported oil came from Russia. As part of the new deal, tariffs on India would be lowered from 25% to 18%. The president also wrote on Truth Social that, quote, "This will help end the war in Ukraine, which is taking place right now, with thousands of people dying each and every week." As for Venezuela, following the capture of dictator Nicolas Maduro, Trump said that the United States would take over the country's oil industry and rebuild its oil fields.
The nation's capital just released last month's crime statistics, and one number is particularly stunning. D.C. saw just one homicide in January. The Washington Post reported that prior to this year, D.C. has seen a homicide within the first 10 days of the year every year for the past 3 decades. The Post says the causes of the crime drop are, quote, complex, but the White House is unambiguously taking credit for cleaning up D.C. Here's President Trump speaking to reporters on Monday.
D.C. is now considered a very safe place, and it should be. It's our nation's capital. And we sent in the soldiers. I read the Washington Post this week, and it was incredible. They were trying to determine how did we get so low numbers? The low numbers in D.C. because we have very little crime, if any. And they talked about everything except for the fact that we put our National Guard and great soldiers inside our city. They didn't want to mention that. It's how dishonest.
Police statistics show that most crimes in Washington have fallen below the pre-pandemic levels when crime spiked during the shutdowns.
Jill Biden's ex-husband has been charged with murder. 77-year-old William Stevenson is facing charges related to the death of his wife, 64-year-old Linda. William was taken into custody in late December after Linda was found unresponsive in their home. Police first arrived on site to investigate a domestic dispute, but it's not clear who called the police to the residence. William Stevenson and Jill Biden married while Jill was still in college and stayed together for 5 years.
Following Billie Eilish's comments at the Grammys this week, a Native American tribe is publicly calling her out. Daily Wire entertainment reporter Amanda Harding has more.
Eilish said while accepting her 10th Grammy Award, quote, "No one is illegal on stolen land," before saying, quote, "F ICE." Only a day later, the Tongva tribe, who are the indigenous inhabitants of the Los Angeles Basin, known as the First Angelinos, issued a public statement. They announced that the land beneath Eilish's $3 million LA mansion is technically theirs, and that, quote, "Eilish has not contacted our tribe directly regarding her property." Along with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, Senator Mike Lee mocked Eilish, saying, quote, "Any white person who does a public stolen land acknowledgement should immediately give his or her land to Native Americans. Otherwise, they don't mean it." Independent journalist Manny Marotta pointed out that, quote, "Eilish, worth $50 million, has given $0 to the original inhabitants of this stolen land."
Disney has named a new CEO. The Mouse House announced today that Josh D'Amaro, head of Disney Parks, will replace outgoing CEO Bob Iger on March 18th. The selection follows a reported years-long search. Iger will remain with the company as senior advisor and board member through the end of the year. D'Amaro will now oversee a proposed $60 billion investment in Disney Parks over the next 10 years, as well as the company's continued efforts to adapt to a rapidly changing entertainment industry.
And NASA has delayed a rocket launch following a comprehensive test last night. The Artemis II mission, originally scheduled to launch around February 8th, has now been delayed until March. Monday's tests revealed minor hydrogen leaks while fueling the engines, prompting NASA to conduct further tests. Artemis II will be the first deep space flight by humans since the suspension of the Apollo program in 1972, and a crucial step toward the goal of returning to the moon.
All right, those are your drive home updates. To learn more about these stories, go to dailywire.com. And in case you missed it earlier today, we covered some major stories, including anti-ICE protesters pressuring businesses to pick a side, the House scrambling to reopen the government, and thousands of Americans demanding answers as the lights remain off after Winter Storm Fern. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow morning with another full edition of Morning Wire.